Oh, no. When life gives you lemons, you practice your rendition of juggling with 2, and then you make lemon tart. Hi, I'm Sasha, a baker and a trainer in New York City, and this is Alt Baking Bootcamp with Well+Good. So today, we're gonna make a gluten-free lemon raspberry tart. For those of you who are gluten-free and struggling to nail that perfect buttery crust texture, I got you. So basically, all you need to do is nail your basic ingredients, and that comes down to your flour mixture. I've tousled with so many different combinations of gluten-free flours, adding different binders and thickeners, and really, you should just go to the store and buy one that's already been perfected. Here I'm using Bob's Red Mill, and this is their all-purpose gluten-free flour, which does require xanthan gum being added to it. And what xanthan gum does is just acts as a binder and a stabilizer, whereas the gluten would have provided some of those things for your crust. You kind of need to replace that with the xanthan gum. Some flours already come with it, so make sure you're reading the back and the ingredient list to make sure that you're not adding it if you don't need to. All right, so cold cubed butter, powdered sugar, an egg, and our flour mixture, and it's all just gonna go right into the food processor. So I've sifted my flour, which you should also do at home. What you want is super smooth flour, so no lumps, because if there's lumps in your dry flour, there's definitely gonna be lumps in your dough, and we don't want that. So I'm gonna do the sugar and the flour initially, and then give it a little pulse so that it all combines really well. Done. Now I'm gonna add my butter, and so you kind of wanna distribute all the chunks. It's so cold that it's sticking together, which is what you want. You wanna distribute the chunks all over, and now we're gonna pulse that. And you just basically want the butter to be completely coated by the flour, and then we'll add our egg and everything will fully come together. Oh. I'm gonna try to go one end. Oh, we did it. One hand right in there. And then flour goes everywhere. So you can see already how it's starting to combine. These little bits that are starting to trail behind, you don't want that. You want it to be one conglomerate of dough. So we're gonna keep going. Okay. Going to gently put it all together. Oh my gosh, it's so sticky and perfect. There's a little bit of flour on the bottom, and I wanna make sure that gets into my dough, because we don't actually know whether that flour is just flour or maybe has some of the xanthan gum that we've added. So that's why you want everything to be fully combined. I'm gonna wrap this in some plastic wrap, put it in the fridge for about 30 minutes so that the butter can hydrate all of my flours, and then we'll roll it out, put it into our tart pan, and bake it off. Okay, so now that my dough has been chilling for 30 minutes, it should feel cold to the touch, everything should be congealed together, and we can take it out of the saran wrap. You're gonna wanna lightly flour your surface so that nothing gets stuck, and then we'll roll it out. And don't forget, it's gluten-free crust, so if you are indeed gluten-free, the flour that you use to dust your surface should also be gluten-free. A light dusting. And then people think that you're supposed to roll back and forth with your roller, and you shouldn't. You wanna just roll to the edges so that you have an even circumference and also an even depth. And you can kind of control. You'll start to notice where it's thicker, where it's thinner, and then you can apply pressure in those directions. So I'm gonna attempt to roll this out to just slightly bigger than the size of my tart pan. And then we will use our nifty roller to layer it over. So we're looking pretty even here. Basically what you're gonna do now is just pick up the edges, roll it over here, and then we are going to transport here with the help of our roller. Ta-da! Bring it a little closer. Give it a little bit of slack. And then I want all my edges to be fully filled. You don't wanna spend too much time pressing it into the tart pan because the temperature of your skin will start to warm up the dough and melt the butter, and we don't want any of that to happen until it's actually in the oven. Now that it's all pressed in, you're gonna take a fork and you're just gonna add a few little perforations here just to avoid any bubbling at the base. Okay, so now I'm gonna cover it with foil. The foil does not need to be perfect. It's just to avoid any excessive browning when you're baking it. And then I'm gonna take a metal mixing bowl to weigh it down. That way we don't get any big pockets of air or bubbles. And now we're gonna put it in the oven at 350 for 25 to 35 minutes. At about the 20-minute mark, I'm gonna check in on it underneath the foil and see how brown it is, and then we can gauge from there. So we are moving on to our lemon curd filling, and it is a bit tedious, but very simple if you can just follow the instructions with me. Zesting tip. While it might seem enticing to use your microplane against the lemon, it's much more precarious to do that. So what you wanna do is place your microplane down on the flat surface edges of your bowl and then press your lemon against the microplane. That way you can control fully how much you're zesting and make sure you don't cut yourself while doing it. You can thank me later for that tip. Okay, zestfully zesty, all in my bowl. And now I'm just gonna cut these in half, and then I'll use a lemon reamer to squeeze all the juice out of them. And so now we're gonna just move on to our egg separating. I need 4 egg yolks in addition to 4 whole eggs. So we're gonna separate the whites from the yolks. I like to use the mother hen technique, which is just cracking one against another. So I pass it back and forth a couple of times, and then I use the shell to just help separate. All that's left to do is combine all of our ingredients. So I'm gonna go egg yolks, make sure all of the egg yolk is completely there, because that's what's gonna set our curd. Add my zest and my lemon. I've got some honey and some melted coconut oil. All right, so here I'm just gonna break up my egg yolks. Once it's all mixed, we're gonna put this all on the stove. I'm gonna go straight into my pot, very, very carefully. Set your timer for 15 minutes. So the first 5 minutes, you don't need to stir nonstop, but the remaining 10 minutes, you definitely wanna be right here present, constantly stirring. You're gonna notice that as it starts to cook, the texture is going to change into a very custard, firmer consistency. And if it still seems a little thin, don't worry. As it cools, it will also start to thicken up. Now that my curd is all set, we're just gonna pass it through this sieve. I'm gonna do a little bit at a time, and I'm gonna use this spatula to kind of help it through. All the chunks will stay in the sieve, and all of the smooth goodness will go through the sieve. There's something strangely satisfying about doing this. You just wanna give it a nice little stir with your spatula. We're gonna get this curd right into our gluten-free crust. Make sure it's nice and smooth and luscious, and we'll go right in. So using your spatula to spread it all the way to the edges, trying to create a nice even layer here, and then we'll put it in the fridge for about 1 to 2 hours. You can double check. You just want the curd to be set completely, and you'll know by just putting a little finger in there. Look at her. She's perfect, she's beautiful, she's lemony. Oh my God, she looks heavenly. Gluten-free, curd, zestfully delicious, and now we can just decorate her. Let's just give it a go. 1001, 1002. All right, I think she's pretty barified. And now we can just cut right into her. Let's dig in. You just wanna make sure you're going all the way through to the bottom, and hopefully our crust stays intact. I'm gonna cut myself a pretty generous slice here because she's looking really, really scrumptious. And then I've got an offset spatula, which you might not have at home, and that's totally okay. You can definitely just use the knife that you cut with. There we go. Fork and a knife, because we're very proper today. Oh my God, and it just went right through. So I'm gonna try to get all the crust, at least one raspberry. Let's dig in. The raspberries are so yummy. It's perfect. The curd is silky and smooth. The crust is so buttery and just a tiny bit sweet. So it offsets the tartness of the curd and the tartness of the raspberries. It's literally heaven. I mean, you have to have this. If you haven't already decided to make this and you've made it this far through the video, then this will change your mind. So you can see that my crust did a really good job of holding up. That's the work of the cold butter and the perfect ratios of gluten-free flours. So if you have been really trying to get this crust just right, this is gonna be the recipe for you. The full recipe can be found in the description below. And for more episodes of Alt Baking Bootcamp, please subscribe to Well+Good. See you next time.